name of the agency is Exit Elite Realty, and I represent a real estate team called the Grind Team, which consists about 8 members, and we all are agents under Exit Elite Realty. So we go after most of your buyers. We do a lot of what we call guerrilla marketing.
Okay.
You may see us all around town. You see our signs that say the Grind Team, 580 credit score approved, FHA, VA loans. So that's basically one of the things we do. I have the know-how within the legalities of the real estate laws and things like that to operate and go after buyers the way we do. We constantly, we have buyer broker appointments at least 3 or 4 times a week.
Okay.
And like I said, we do have listings. We have a lot of listings. But our unique and unorthodox approach is if we're not showing a house, then we're not working.
Oh, I'm the jock, and I'm back on the scene with the sports machine. Said, ooh, Papa do, how y'all do? Roland Bubba Grimes here on the Roland Grimes Show live on WBGR Sports Radio Online. And as always, I'm here with my esteemed cohort and resident archaeologist, my new resident archaeologist, Miss Coach Tanya. Coach Tanya, how are you this evening?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm terrific. I call her my archaeologist because it's her responsibility to dig up dirt on everybody. All right, so tonight we're going to start with something really deep, folks. I'm sure many of you have heard by now, if you're not living in a bubble or under a rock, that the former tight end for the world champion New England Patriots, Mr. Aaron Hernandez, by way of Connecticut, Massachusetts, somewhere, went to the University of Florida, played for the Gators, and played several years with the New England Patriots, was convicted today of murder in the first degree, was given a lifetime sentence with no parole. Give us a call, 301-429-9247, 301-429-9247. And after we take a station break in short order, we're going to, we have an in-studio guest this evening, flew all the way in from Canton, Ohio. And he told me he saw my bus out there at the Hall of Fame. Actually, it was a guy named Bubba Smith, but it's close enough. He saw my bus out there, so he came in town. He said, Bubba, I'm going to sit on your show. We're going to talk a little bit about football, basketball, maybe a little baseball. Coach Tanya.
Yes.
This person that we have in our studio from Canton, Ohio, how long has he been in the D.C. area, or are we just renting him for a little while?
He's been here for a while. We're not renting him. He's trying to go back. But
Trying to go back where?
to Ohio.
That's a secret. That's a secret.
There's nothing in Toledo.
He's going to stay here.
Yeah, that's what I like. My archaeologist digging it up, telling the secrets. All right, we already got him on. My main man, Mr. Engineer, Lionel Green. Folks, everybody say hi to Lionel.
Hey, what's happening?
Hey, Lionel.
All right, Lionel, how many people we have listening to us now? 6, 7, 8?
Now we got 36 right now.
Wow. Okay. I know my mom is listening tonight, so I had to start on time, Lionel. I was going to get a spanking when I got home. She worked a number of years for WHR Radio, and they don't play that.
No, they don't.
Yeah, they don't play that. Everything's on time. Matter of fact, it's early. So, folks, when you get a chance, give us a call, 301-429-9247. Of course, tune in www.wbgrsports.com. If you go to my Facebook page right now, Roland Grimes, you will see the link to the show, and you will also see the telephone number. We're going to kick it off right now for the first few minutes, and we're going to talk about Mr. Hernandez. I'm going to start with you, Coach Tanya. And I understand that, well, this is one of those storylines that was really big maybe maybe a year and a half ago. And then it sort of disappeared off the news cycle like it's supposed to as he was going through some of his trial. You know, ESPN, different sports stations, you know, did a periodic blurb on what was happening with him. But this thing just kept growing legs. Now, I don't know if you are aware of this, and I'm hoping, Lionel, that I can confirm a little later, but he's not only charged with this murder, but they're looking into another one.
Yeah, in 2012, a double homicide.
A double homicide
Yes.
in a car or something, right? It was pulled up at a red light or something, if I recall. And I guess these guys, you know, caught a bad case of death, and they somehow connected him either through the ballistics of the gun and some other things. But one thing's for certain, he had some accomplices with him every time. He did not do this solo.
Oh, no.
And I always tell criminals, hey, if you're going to do something, you're going to take your boys with you. You better be prepared, because one of the three of them are going to sing when that pressure, the one who didn't pull the trigger is going to tell that story at some point. So he had some accomplices with him, and I do believe they did not help his cause at all. But let's talk about this situation with Odin Lloyd. This gentleman, Coach Tanya, was the brother of the lady of his living girlfriend, mother of his child.
Did you get that right?
Yeah. I said it back.
You said it
I said it
backwards.
backwards.
Yeah.
I said it backwards. All right, but it was his living girlfriend and the mother of his child. Brother.
Right.
It was her brother.
It was Hernandez's fiance's brothers.
Oh, they were actually engaged.
Hernandez was engaged to his fiance was his sister. Yeah.
Hernandez was engaged to his sister.
Yes.
His own sister? Or on all right, you know, just checking. So, you know, okay, so he was engaged to Odin Lloyd's sister.
Yeah.
And they were friends.
Yes.
They hung out together. I remember hearing some of the stories. You know, they went to the bar together. They probably did a little bit of dirt together from time to time. And I heard some crazy stuff. It came down like this. There was a situation where he, according to, he said something to somebody that was disrespectful to Aaron to some extent. Like he said something to the effect of he's not all that, or somebody was having a conversation and he didn't say something positive about him. It wasn't, if I recall, it wasn't anything specific that happened. It was more of a he dissed me type thing.
Right.
Like, how did that turn? How did that turn from you upset me because you didn't represent me correctly to I'm going to kill you?
Well, in looking back at some of the news articles and different things about Aaron, that seems to be his motive. You know, if someone didn't agree with him or if he felt someone wronged him, he would get upset.
Oh, so he would get his gangster on every time.
Yeah.
That was his modus operandi, huh? You saw I pull that one out of my I took about 6 law classes, Lionel. That's his modus operandi. That's Latin for M.O. All right, so this is how he operated. So according to some of that testimony and what witnesses are saying, that he has this history of whenever somebody doesn't approach things the way he wants to bully them, knock them out, or put them to sleep. Now, is this also maybe part of what that other double homicide is? Or was that different circumstances? Do you remember anything about that one?
That one actually.
It appeared as if that one was based on some kind of actual conflict.
Yes.
Like they got into it at the bar.
At a
or
bar.
something.
They got into it at a bar.
And he chased them down, and then they say allegedly he may have just opened fire and killed them because they had an argument at the bar. But
And then one of, I don't know if it was in that same instance or not, but there's another gentleman, Bradley, that he shot in the face.
yeah, a friend of his or somebody.
Yeah,
Right?
another friend of his. It seems to be
gracious.
not good to be his friend. You know, that's one of them people that you don't want as a friend.
But he was. Let's talk about that. Big time football player.
Right.
All right. So look, let's call a spade a spade. You know, if I have a certain type of character just from hanging out with me, and you know that whatever that character is, it's kind of like that old story where a guy he found a snake and it was a baby snake, and they raised the snake. And as the snake is growing, he's letting the snake crawl around him, feeding him, treating him real nice, right? And then one day as an adult, he's talking to the snake, and the snake rears back and bites him in the heart. And as he's dying, he looks at the snake and says, I fed you, I took care of you, I treated you great. Why did you do that? And he said, I'm a snake. That be what I do. So if that's the case, and you know that this kind of person has this tendency in dealing with other people, at what point does that show up with you? In other words, you have friends. If a friend has a certain personality toward other people, at the moment that you are on the other side of that person's equation, that personality is going to show up with you, isn't it?
Right.
Why do you think these people didn't cut him loose?
Because he had money, and he was spending money on them, and that's the same reason they didn't testify against him.
So is fame,
He would
is fame and
hold-
money
he-
that big a deal?
To some people, it is. To some people, they like that limelight. They want to be in that spotlight. They want to be around someone that makes money, that they think can get them somewhere, that can take them to that next level.
Okay, now this isn't just an athletic thing. Ever since I started hanging out with you, I've been going back and reading some of my old Shakespeare novels. Okay, because remember we had that when we spoke at that school, we talked about the antagonist, the protagonist,
Right.
and all that good stuff, right? Well, it seems to be a prevailing theme that people want to hang out with power, regardless.
Right.
And in American society, National Football League players and even star college players have a degree of power. Let's talk about that. How does that power manifest itself? Now, I can tell you from my own prejudices how we used to play it. But from your observation, positive or negative, how do these athletes often exercise their leverage and power in situations, especially social situations, on the street, in the neighborhood, in the community? How do we conduct ourselves sometimes?
I think it depends on the person. Some people may exercise it because of their physical stature, and they use their size to their advantage. Some use their monetary stature.
So we throw our weight
You
around?
throw your weight around, whether it's with money or physical aspects. You know, I'll buy you this, or we're all at the club, and you're paying for all these bottles, and we're getting all this VIP service. Then yeah, I want to hang around you. I want to be with you, because then people will think I have that as well, even though I don't. But you know, people might think that, and then they want to be around me. And when you're not around, I still can get those accolades and say, hey, you know, I'm Bubba's friend. Can I get in? This, that, and the other. So you use that person's name.
And that happens. I mean, I did that too. Even when I was, I mean, let's face it. When I was at Syracuse at that time, there were many star athletes, especially on the basketball team. We had a chance to eat and drink free,
Right.
just walking in with those guys. Now, there's also a protection part of this. Give you a quick example. When I finished playing ball, I used to live in a certain neighborhood in Syracuse that was seemingly undesirable to some people. And there were a rash of break-ins along the corridor of the neighborhood, right? So one day I ran into one of the Mookies in the neighborhood and had a conversation with him, and I said, Mook, question, I did breaking in everybody's house, man. You know, I want to make sure, man, you know, that you let them know, pass mine by. And he looked at me, he said, man, have you lost your mind? He said, big as y'all are,
They're not gonna mess with you.
Nobody's coming up. As a
Yeah.
matter of fact, we all trying to figure out how we can live in your apartment so nobody mess with us. And I thought about it after that, and I remember many situations, and I got a good friend of mine, high school, Ellison Spurlock, and he told me the story when we were when I was in 11th grade, Forestville Mall. It was just building Forest Village Park Mall. We go walking through the mall, and some guy's beating up his woman. And and Lily said, we call him Lily. He said, I walked up to the guy and I said, look, let me explain something to you. Whatever you do to her, we're about to do that to you. Now, this was a grown man we were talking to, but that flip switch kicked in.
Right.
And even at 16, I was going to jump on this guy for jumping on this woman. So I think about it, and there was an aura or era of perceived protection that we also provide people because of our stature and because of our leverage. Now, what happens if I also have that flip switch and I use it against some of my friends, it now becomes the opposite of being protected. They now become villainized by me. Now, I'm not going to of course, I've never, Coach Tanya, you know I never turned on my friends, ever. Anyway, having said that, though, is that status that we give these athletes, is it too much? You keep saying depending on the person. I'm hip to that. But let's just say based on stories like this, are we giving them a whole lot more leverage, power, control, influence over us in media and in our personal lives and dealing with them than we should?
Yes.
You said that too quick. Just flat out yes? Why?
Because no one should have that power over you. You should have that power over yourself.
Okay. That's not what Shakespeare said.
You shouldn't give anybody that much power over you. Period.
You shouldn't give anyone that kind of influence?
No.
Then what's the purpose of being big time if you can't wield some influence and power? I mean, why? Why would you?
So who has the power over you?
Over who?
Over you.
Over me?
Yes.
My mommy and daddy?
Okay, other than your mother and father, who has that power over
My
you?
children? I mean, here's the thing. No.
Outside of your friends.
Let me go there.
Who has that power over you?
Let me go there.
That can get you to do whatever they want you to do.
Pretty soon, I have access to some NFL folks, okay? And I know that when they go places, if I have an opportunity to be there, I know that the room moves a lot differently when they're there. I went to, you guys may remember New York Giants tight end Mark Bavaro. Mark Bavaro was an all-pro tight end with the Giants. His brother played with me at Syracuse. My brother and Mark Bavaro were good friends. We went to Mark Bavaro's wedding in Connecticut. I didn't even play for the Giants, but the mere fact I was there in a suit and had those shoulders,
They thought you did.
oh my goodness.
And you ate it up.
I saw how the other half lives. I mean, I got a taste of it in college, but it's a whole lot different. I mean, when I walked in the door, it was, oh my God. And you can see people's heart beating through their shirts when we were, and they were just standing in line waiting and trying to figure out which Giant was coming in. And it was the most amazing thing. And
It gives you that rush.
yeah, but doesn't it give you the rush, one as an athlete, but also gives you rush being one of those persons in the room with them, right?
Yes.
Okay, so it's not such a bad thing then, right? You said we shouldn't give it to anybody. Come on now.
It's
Come on.
not a bad thing. It's not such a bad thing, but you have to have control over it. And you have to be the type of person that you know where your limits are and what you're supposed to do.
Okay. So now, Lionel, so this guy is hanging out with his future brother-in-law, and he knows that his future brother-in-law is probably 10 floors short of a skyscraper, right? And he's seen this guy trip and flip, but yet he continues to engage him in this relationship. As a matter of fact, in the car on the way to his death, he texted his sister
To say that he was with NFL, kind of like just in case something was going to happen.
just,
And it did.
right, that this is who he was with last.
Yes.
Now, Lionel, at some point, is he supposed to cut that guy loose at some point just because he has this mannerism about him, or do you keep the relation? I mean, this is your boy now. This is your future brother-in-law. I have family members who are not family members. Of course, nobody in my family, but I've known some people who are crazier than that, right? I didn't cut them loose because they were, because they had a flip switch. I continued to befriend them, and over time, as they grew older, they matured, and they either got out of the game or they mellowed out.
But if that person continued to get in trouble and do things, breaking the law or different things like that, do you continue to be around that person? Because then you become subject of being stereotyped as the same type person.
That's right, Lionel.
Well, I mean, I have a lot of friends in the, that play in the professional league, even in Canada with me. And I seen how they, some of them dog their friends. Even me, I had some of my friends that would just want to hang around them.
Right. And they treat them like crap. I've seen that.
Yeah, and I would cut them loose. I mean, but I think you would cut them loose too because you was a athlete. It's like, dude, I ain't your flunky. You know what I mean? But people who didn't play sports or didn't never experience any of that type of limelight or get to go places and eat for free and do the things that professional athletes did, or even college athletes at a D1 school, such as where you went to Syracuse. They want to be around it, and they ain't care how they got treated, as long as they got some free tickets and free meal and can get your 3, 4, and 5 females that you wasn't gonna mess with. So it's a benefit to them.
So let's for the sake of conversation, and folks, again, 301-429-9247, let's just say it's a natural instinct to want to be around celebrated persons. Their behavior, obviously, if they're dogging you out as their friend, you may get tired of that.
Right.
Now, if they're dogging other people around, but they're cool with you, you may not get tired of it as quickly. But let's say that's a natural instinct to hang out with people with celebrated status, especially in this day and age of media. We can make stars out of athletes overnight. Just on ESPN. This kid this freshman that played with Duke, I was sitting there watching the game, and I said, well, when he goes back to campus, he's going to own the joint. Because he shot 18 points in the second half and made some plays, and everybody's screaming. Have you ever been in a situation where 50,000 people are just screaming for you? Have you ever been in that situation before?
No.
Now, can you imagine what that would do to anyone's mindset? The 50,000 people screaming for you, hopefully favorably. I've been on both sides of it, where I got booed and where I had
Right.
cheered. And understand that when that cheering stops and you go back into your natural habitat, you're still feeling that cheer. And then when you go into the street, especially in situations where people see your face, like basketball, baseball, football, sometimes they only know you as a number. In the pros, they get to see your face because, it's a lot different in college. The pros, they market you as a person as well. And you walk out there and you have this kind of power and pull. Now, Aaron Hernandez, let's just say he has, let's go with the flow. Let's say he has this personality of a gangster. He appeared to live by gangster code. If you didn't do what I said do, or you didn't operate, or you had a beef with me, I had to silence you.
Right.
And apparently this guy went to the point where he really silenced you.
Yes.
Now, how is it that a person like that stays in the NFL that long? Because everybody around him has to know that this guy's on the corner market of being crazy.
I think I read when he was drafted to the Patriots, because he had issues prior to that in college and everything with the drugs and stuff. He told them, biweekly drug test me, and he tied some of his compensation to that if he failed it, he had to pay a price.
Right.
So he talked a good game to get around things.
Well, honestly speaking, it's probably 40% of the guys that have to do that. Because the drugs now is weed.
Right.
And let's face it, call a spade a spade. So, probably 4 out of every 10 prospective pro football or basketball player has to have this kind of conversation with management because they wouldn't pass those tests. Now, this violence.
Do they all write a letter to them prior to that? Or is this just
this
something that just happens? I'm asking you,
Yeah.
is this something that just happens like after they're drafted, this is a conversation that we're having with the coach? Or is it done prior to that to say, okay, if you pick me, this is what I'm going to do?
Small fraternity, so you kind of know the personality and you know the
Okay.
ways of people. And what happens with that is, I mean, you're getting ready to spend millions of dollars on an individual, and he has to perform. So, without getting too graphic, they check everything.
Okay.
They look in areas where the sun don't shine. And there was a guy years ago, American Samoan kid, I think he was, who during one of the screenings for the NFL draft broke down crying and walked out of the combine or wherever he was doing the testing. And when they interviewed him later, he said he now knew what it felt like to be an African slave in the slave trade going from Africa to America. He said he now knew what it was like to be a slave. He said it felt like an auction. By the time because when I tell you they look where the sun doesn't shine, they're looking for hernias and hemorrhoids. I mean, it gets that deep sometimes. And, we talk about checking your teeth and your gums and your lymph nodes. Yeah, because you're getting ready to put this real money down on somebody.